Living in the light. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1 through 14. Imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are His dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered Himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. Let there be no sexual immorality, impurity, or greed among you. Such sins have no place among God's people. Obscene stories, foolish talk, and coarse jokes, these are not for you. Instead, let there be thankfulness to God. You can be sure that no immoral, impure, or greedy person will inherit the kingdom of Christ and of God. For a greedy person is an idolater, worshiping the things of this world. Don't be fooled by those who try to excuse these sins, for the anger of God will fall on all who disobey Him. Don't participate in the things these people do. For once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord. So live as people of light. For this light within you produces only what is good and right and true. Carefully determine what pleases the Lord. Take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them. It is shameful even to talk about the things that ungodly people do in secret. But their evil intentions will be exposed when the light shines on them. For the light makes everything visible. This is why it is said, "Awake, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will give you light." Just as children imitate their parents, we should follow God's example. His great love for us led Him to sacrifice Himself so that we might live. Our love for others should be of the same kind, a love that goes beyond affection to self-sacrificing service. Obscene stories and coarse jokes are so common that we begin to take them for granted. Paul cautions, however, that improper language should have no place in the Christian's conversation because it does not reflect God's gracious presence in us. How can we praise God and remind others of His goodness when we are speaking coarsely? Paul does not forbid all contact with unbelievers. Jesus taught His followers to befriend sinners and lead them to Him. Luke chapter 5, verse 30 through 32. Instead, Paul writes against the lifestyle of people who make excuses for bad behavior and recommend its practice to others, whether they are in the church or outside of it. Such people quickly pollute the church and endanger its unity and purpose. We must befriend unbelievers if we are to lead them to Christ, but we must be wary of those who are viciously evil, immoral, or opposed to all that Christianity stands for. Such people are more likely to influence us for evil than we are to influence them for good. The Greek word for imitators means those who mimic. Copy God. He was kind, tender-hearted, and forgiving. If you are involved in sexual impurity, according to the Scriptures, you have no place or inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. After making this strong statement, Paul declares further, "Let no one deceive you with empty words." The Bible makes it clear that if you really have a walk with God, you will stop living after the flesh. If you are still living after the flesh, don't be surprised if heaven's gates are closed to you, or you are left behind when the rapture comes. You have been warned. As people who have light from the Lord, our actions should reflect our faith. We should live above reproach morally, so that we will reflect God's goodness to others. Jesus stressed this truth in the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 5, verse 15 and 16. It is important to avoid the worthless deeds of evil and darkness, any pleasure or activity that results in sin. But we must go even further. Paul instructs us to expose these deeds because our silence may be interpreted as approval. God needs people who will take a stand for what is right. Christians must lovingly speak out for what is true and right.